All right, I call the April 6th meeting of the school committee to order. Let me take a quick walk through the agenda, and then we will jump right in. So we'll start with public comment. We'll move on to our consent agenda, followed by reports. We're going to kick off with the old business section. We're going to take item D2 out of order, pending approval of the committee, which is about an update on the RMHS Innovation Pathways, very exciting update. We'll then move into an update on kindergarten enrollment for next year. We'll then adjourn to an executive session for about an hour or so with the intent to return. And in that executive session, we've got three topics. So one is around strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with the superintendent. Another is around discussing strategy for collective bargaining with respect to all of our bargaining units. And then we do have some executive session minutes from past sessions to review and approve this evening as well. When we return from executive session, we unfortunately are going to be discussing the search process for hiring or identifying and hiring a new director of finance. We'll certainly have more detail on that when we get to that point in the process. We will be taking a vote to approve the last day of school for this school year. Hopefully, knock on wood, we're through snow days. We have a very exciting, opportunity from my perspective to vote on granting a diploma to a veteran who left school to go fight on behalf of the country. And then we've got three topics related to student activity accounts, which I know Dr. Quorum will be excited to see. So we'll be approving the status of sort of the active 2022-2023 student activity accounts. We will be reviewing and potentially closing a number of inactive student activity accounts, and then taking a vote to move funds appropriately from those inactive accounts that may be closed. And then finally, depending on sort of the discussion in our executive session and the discussion that we have in public as well, we may or may not have a vote to exercise an extension on the superintendent's contract. And that will bring us to the end of our agenda. It sounds like a lot. I'm hopeful that we get through it reasonably quickly, but it does sound like a lot. One thing I want to say before we jump in, while our policy on religious observances doesn't directly impact committee meetings, it's really more about student activities and student engagement. Probably not ideal and not keeping with the spirit of the policy for us to have this meeting on the second night of Passover. That's on me. My misunderstanding that it was the first night of Passover that was the sort of the key religious observance. So I've since learned that it's the first two nights for many families. So my apologies for that, and we will certainly try to avoid that going forward. So
and Holy Thursday. And
Holy Thursday as well. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So. Good Friday is the one that's on our list, though, and we don't have a meeting tomorrow, so we steered clear of that at least. Okay, so again, my apologies for that. But with that, let's jump into our agenda. We'll start with public comment for anything that is not on the agenda this evening. Okay, and seeing none, we can move to the consent agenda. Carla, is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. Any discussion on the consent agenda tonight? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Carries 6-0. Okay, and we will go to reports. I will start with Ms. Baton.
This evening I have one brief report. It's an extension to one that I gave during our last meeting regarding the Safe Routes to School grant, infrastructure grant that the town of Reading received at $2.1 million. This past week, we met with 20 engineers and project representatives from the Department of Transportation, from the consulting firm AECOM, and town and school officials. We walked the site in front of Coolidge, in front of Reading Memorial High School, and up along Oakland Road to review some of the site issues that our conceptual plan will address. This project is a 5-year plan, and we are very much looking forward to getting started, and we believe that this collaborative effort will make a significant difference for students and families who are accessing our schools in this area and the Birch Meadow complex. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Milczewski.
Great. Three quick updates. First is Arts Fest. I think you've seen some of the flyers around. Is next week. I think that's a community favorite. So starting Monday all the way through Thursday, visual arts, dance, music, every evening. Should be a wonderful opportunity for anyone in our community to come get engaged, and I think we are really excited to showcase some of the wonderful things happening across our district. Second is an update on our assistant principal search process. So I think we've given kind of updates over the past several months of how we were handling the search process and the different phases. Are thrilled to share that we have, as of the past couple of days, named 4 of our assistant principals at new elementary school principal positions, and I'm going to share a little bit about those 4 leaders who we've just hired. So first at Wood End, Jess Hester. Jess Hester is currently a 3rd grade teacher at Wood End, and she'll stay at Wood End as the assistant principal. At Killam, we're hiring Talia Hallett. If you don't know Talia is a 1st grade teacher at Birch, also the school's assistant principal. So she'll be shifting over to Killam as the school's assistant principal. And then the next 2 are 2 external candidates at Barrows. First, we're hiring Anne Marie Ring. Anne Marie is the current assistant principal at in Winchester. She's been there for about 7 years. She's also, many of you may know her, she's the Coolidge PTO president, also been very involved in REF as well, and has students here at RMHS. And then last, at Birch, we've hired Lisa Azarito. Lisa is currently the K-4 Humanities Coordinator in the Wakefield Public Schools. So we are absolutely thrilled with the quality of the 4 candidates that we have stepping into our schools, and we think that those roles will really be pivotal in supporting our students and staff and moving all the different things forward. So really excited there. And also the one school we didn't name is JE. So JE went through the process with the other 4 schools. At the end, we did not leave with a candidate that we wanted to move forward and name as the assistant principal. So JE will be reposting the position tomorrow as a JE-specific posting. We think we're still in a very favorable timeline. We still feel very confident with the quality of candidates that are out there. So I think that at this point, we think that JE is still positioned really well to land someone really strong, too. So I'd like to thank all of those who were involved at different phases of the process. We had a lot of different teachers involved, a lot of staff involved, some parents involved throughout the process, and just, again, really excited about the positions and especially really excited about the candidates that we were able to hire. And then last but not least, just an update, and this is also a thanks to the committee. On April 26th, we're going to be having members of our town leaders, school committee, our administration, possibly other elected officials come and support and spend full days in our schools. So this idea stemmed out of a conversation I had with the 4th grade team at Barrows, who said, wouldn't it be awesome at some time this spring if we had those who serve our community but don't spend time in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis, myself included, to spend the full day in our classrooms to get a feel for what our students' experience is like. So right now, we have reached out to our school committees already all volunteered to spend the day. Our town manager has also volunteered to spend the day. And just the past couple of days, we sent out also an invitation to a lot of our elected officials and some of our other town leaders to join us. This weekend in our parent principal newsletters, they're going to be asking, which teachers would be willing to host a town leader or a school leader for the day, and that will also, whether it's going to be with one individual teacher throughout the day or possibly rotating between a 6th grade team or a certain department. I will be there, our whole central office team will be there, and some of our other staff members who aren't in classrooms. We think that this is going to be a really awesome opportunity for us to build community, and would like to thank those who are taking a full day out of work to join us, and I think that'll be very well received. So we're looking forward to April 26th. Placements to be determined at the end of next week.
No, we're all looking forward to it and getting a chance to eat Catherine Franzetti's food as well. So.
Oh, gosh, I didn't even think of that.
Great. That's everything.
Okay, great. So let's do liaison reports. I will start with Sarah.
No report.
Chuck?
So I would have reported at the last meeting, but I wasn't here. Our last recreation committee meeting discussion predominantly went around pickleball courts again, and the discussion about Sturgis and some of the places at Memorial Park where they don't necessarily want them. So we have another meeting Monday night, coming Monday night. I'm sure that will be further discussed. And last week, the Simon's, is it SWEC, I guess?
Yeah, Simon's Way Exploratory.
We had a meeting, and the 2 main agenda items were to go over the community survey, which is still actually open. I think it's open until after town meeting. And also rediscuss the mission of the committee. We spent a lot of time on going over the survey and you know, a lot of what, as you can expect, was pickleball and things. A lot of recreation really dominated what a lot of people are looking for there. When we got into the discussion on the mission, we had that discussion evolved into, you know, sending our chair back to the select board to kind of expand the scope of what we're looking at down there. And, you know, if everyone read the tabloids, we probably voted, if we voted and it, you know, I mean, you could argue either way, whether it was a vote that was not posted, so it was a open meeting violation or but it was the agenda item, so we're gonna actually meet again. We meet Tuesday night again, and we'll revisit all those things again, just to keep things on the up and up, so.
Aaron?
No reports tonight.
Tom?
I guess we'll start with Legal Counsel Subcommittee. We've had 2 meetings so far. Last week, we got together and put together the plan in terms of the timelines. So just a few quick notes on that. We're finalizing our rubric and memo that's going to go out to potential law firms on Monday morning. And then we will be soliciting from law firms to get them to have interest in our process. There's a rather long list on the MASC website for COSA that we'll probably use as a base, but Dr. Stice and Ms. Wright and Dr. Melichewski as well are going to be looking through some other local towns to see if there's anything to avoid or to go towards as part of our process there. We'll then have about 4 weeks of open time for them to provide their feedback and come back to us, and then we will go through the week of the 15th of May, the first round of interviews for whoever applies, basically, or the short list of whoever applies. Based on that, we'll discuss the final round candidates, and we'll invite them to come back for final rounds the week of June 5th, in which case we'll do a little bit more exhaustive second round interview that covers quite a bit more. We're expecting to do background checks the week of June 12th, and our final selection on Thursday, June 15th, so that by the final meeting of this body of this year's June 22nd, we can come back with a recommendation as the charge suggested we need to do. So that's all laid out. I think we're in pretty good shape in that process. But Dr. Melichewski can certainly add if he thinks there's anything else to add, or Sarah as well. We're in good shape there, I think. The other thing of note is that we did finally, it took a little while because there were some complexities to it, but we did finally receive feedback from Legal and Policy GCG, which is one that Michelle Roach had asked us to look at, and we're going to be looking at that as a subcommittee at some point over the next week or two when I can get back with Chuck and Aaron and figure out the timing for that. We'll probably have a few other topics we take at that point in time too from our previous meeting, but that has not yet been scheduled. It'll be scheduled soon.
Great. Carla? Okay, I just have 2 quick things. One, in our last meeting, we talked about how we would align ourselves to the various groups, you know, supporting and involved in the district strategic plan. I've already communicated those alignments to the committee and to the administration, but I just thought I'd share them publicly. Tom will be aligned to the supportive, equitable, and safe learning environments goal. Sarah to coherent instructional systems, Carla to school operations, Aaron to family and community engagement, and then Chuck and I will sit on the sort of the advisory board as well. So that's the first thing. And then we would be remiss if we didn't congratulate Carla and Aaron on vanquishing all challengers and winning second terms on the committee. So congratulations to both of you, and buckle up for 3 more years. So.
Thank you.
And they both got sworn in today with, you know, a couple hours to spare, I think. So they're able to actually vote tonight, which is nice. Okay, so that's all that I have from a report perspective. All right, so why don't we go to old business? Carla, if we could start with a motion, we'll take D2 out of order and then go from there.
Sure. I move to take out of order D2, RMHS Innovative Pathways update.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give it to Aaron, I think. It was pretty close.
That's fine.
All in favor? All opposed, and carries 6-0. Okay. Dr. Melichewski, do you have a prelude or anything, or should we just hand it over to Jess Callanan. who I
So I'll
see
give it
on
to Ms.
Zoom there.
Callanan in 1 second. You should see in your packet just an official letter from DESE sharing the good news that we received official designation for our innovation pathways that were submitted earlier this year. So we invited Ms. Callanan to come in to speak to a little bit tonight for us to share what are the implications of us receiving that official sort of designation, and then also what can we expect moving forward in terms of pathways and related items too. So Ms. Callanan, take it away.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Good. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It is always a great event when you can come and celebrate an achievement. And I think that this is wonderful for the high school, and I really appreciate everyone's support in this process. This committee, but also there's an advisory board of people behind me that we've done meetings throughout the entire school year and tons of communication to make this come to fruition. And so as Dr. Milichewski said, we were granted designation recently, and there are 2 official pathways. One is in advanced manufacturing, and our focus is engineering, and the other one is in information. And there are 2 prongs of that. One is in computer science, and the other is in together with music production and our graphic design, so through the arts department. We're really excited about this. The teachers are very much on board. It is a collaborative effort. And I think one question that rears its head is, what is the significance of a designation? One, it does open the door for continued funding from the Department of Ed or wherever they receive their grants. I'm sure they're from different places, and through being an Innovation Pathways partner. And so we've received a $25,000 planning grant already, which Ms. Boutan has been amazing in helping me manage and learned how to manage grants, because I haven't really done that before. And now that we have a designation, very soon thereafter, we will receive instructions as how to apply for a $75,000 implementation grant, which we will use, we have to use starting July 1st to June 30th, so fiscal year 24. And then after that, as long as you're submitting your reports and making sure that your pathways are adhering to the plan that you wrote, it opens the door to $50,000 grants or for over the next 4 years. So in total, it's $300,000 over the course of 5 years. And so it's pretty exciting, and that can be used for lots of things. I think our focus is definitely putting a lot of the money back in for the students, field trips, speakers, new equipment, paying for dual enrollment opportunities for the students in the innovation pathways, training and professional development for our teachers. And so in addition to that, I have been working with the district staff and many partners in the community, to include our facilities department in the town and also at the high school. And we just submitted I think it's about a little bit over $400,000 skills capital grant, which is separate from Innovation Pathways. However, all that rises must converge. And our goal is we wrote it in the area of building and property management, and biotech lab tech, which are 2 identified occupations that are shorted. They have shortages in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And so if we're given that grant, it will allow us to use to remodel and refurbish and upgrade our carpentry space at the high school, and hopefully merge that with our engineering pathway in the long term, so that students are not only creating through building, but also using our engineering technology and courses to make themselves more marketable after high school, or help them be better informed about what they choose to study when they go to college. Okay, that's my elevator speech, but I'm very happy to answer any questions that people may have that I have not addressed.
I'll just say congratulations to you and the whole team behind this on reaching this milestone. This is a huge deal, very exciting, and I think I see a bunch of nodding heads here. I think we're all very thrilled to receive this news. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Can I ask a quick question?
We do have questions. Okay, Carla.
Hi, Jess, thank you. Just for clarification, the information one includes computer science, music production, graphic design? And then,
Yes, sorry, go ahead. Ruby.
and then the second part, the manufacturing one is advanced engineering. Does it include another like pathway?
It's advanced manufacturing. So there are 5 main content areas, I guess, for lack of a better description, that innovation pathways fall under. And that is, the reason for that is that those are identified shortages in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And those areas are, that we have to choose from, are manufacturing or advanced manufacturing, healthcare or social assistance, business/finance, information, or environmental and life sciences. And so I really believe that these are the start of what we'll be doing. The teachers are very energized, and I think we also had the challenge of, we wanted to create pathways where we had teachers with the capacity to teach the courses, so that it didn't demand hiring additional FTEs right off the bat. And we have teachers that have this knowledge, and some of the courses have already been running, but we're putting them into a pathway. So to answer your question, there's the advanced manufacturing, and under that umbrella is engineering, and then information is the other large umbrella. And then underneath that, there's computer science, which really does not cross over with the arts pathway. That includes students can start in graphic design or music production. And then after the first couple of courses, they sort of merge into business classes that fulfill students' requirements for business and art for graduation, where they learn how to market what they've created in the graphic design and animation courses or the music production courses, and with the goal of them creating an album or creating the marketing materials behind selling those albums over the course of their 4 years at the high school.
Thank you.
Hi, Jess. I was just curious what enrollment has looked like, straight numbers, but also the ratios we were striving for.
So great question. And I have, right now, our goal was 50 students, and that may not seem aggressive enough, for lack of a better term. But from doing this in previous districts, it is better to start small. And then if you think about adding 50 students a year, in 4 years, you have 200 students. So our goal is 50 right now, but right now with the incoming freshmen and then the current freshmen who will be 10th graders that we're also creating on-ramps for, there are 70 students that are enrolled, and they're pretty evenly dispersed. It's a little bit heavier in the engineering, a little bit larger, but there is a pretty good breakdown of numbers. In full disclosure, I'm working with the guidance department to, one, make sure that the students have filled out the applications for innovation pathways, also chose the right courses, so that when we start building the schedules, they're in the classes that they need to be in, which I know sounds very simple, but when you're dealing with so many students, sometimes things slip through the cracks. And then my guidance department, with the $4,500 grant that we just applied for, they're going to do that scrub of making sure we're meeting our demographics. I will say that I am trying to recruit more females. We're not at 50% females right now, but we're doing fairly well with the high needs group.
Awesome. I'm glad the response was so enthusiastic.
Great. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
I just have one question. I know we've talked about this too, but do you mind sharing? You said there's like some excitement from high school teachers about what's ahead and what the future. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about maybe some of the things that the high school staff are excited about, or what are some of the things that they're hoping for in the future as this work moves forward? Give a little teaser.
Sorry.
Just a little teaser of maybe what's coming, conversations ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of, like I said, the courses that are in the beginning of the pathways were courses that we already offered, but we put into a pathway, like graphic design, animation. We already had engineering. We did modify computer science to be a full year course. But I think what's exciting about it is that there are many things, but one thing that is very exciting is that our teachers are getting opportunities to partner with outside community partners, higher education partners, and industry partners. And so it just sort of re-energizes the work you're doing. It keeps you in a growth mindset. And I think teachers are pretty excited about it. Like the computers, we're partnering with TEALS, which is the philanthropic arm of Microsoft, for our computer science courses. And they have people that are working in the industry come in and co-teach with our teachers. It is a program I used in my previous school, and it was highly successful and helped us really bolster our computer science courses. And the teachers are very excited about that. Mr. Albright, who's our science department head, actually, he'll be embarrassed that I'm saying this, but he said we've created a monster, that he's so excited about all of the opportunities and possibilities for his department, that he's like, you better fine-tune your grant writing skills to me. So I think that's great. And I am very proud of sort of the breadth of what we're able to offer. And I also think that it's going to give our students a new opportunity to really establish college credits before they graduate through dual enrollment, which we're expanding and working to expand within Innovation Pathways because it is a requirement. But we're also looking to expand that outside of the current pathways as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you indeed. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we will return to the regular order of our agenda, and that takes us to the kindergarten enrollment update. And Ms. Baton, I'll hand it to you.
Yes, this evening I have updated our kindergarten enrollment by class size. As of April 4th, the number of registrations received for the next school year totals 283 students. Within the packet, you can see the breakdown by class size for each school. At this point, Wood End is our school that has reached 22 students per class section. We have received in 4 requests for half-day kindergarten, and Dr. Milichewski can speak with you more about our plans to accommodate those families. We'll continue to track enrollment every day where we're answering questions of families. People are coming in and registering, and it's going to be a very robust, I think, in full year in the fall for kindergarten.
And we did tick up one more today, too, so to 284. So,
Yeah, I saw him come in right as I
Oh,
was
did you?
walking out.
So
Yeah.
you saw the live drop off. So I want to speak a little bit about the half day. I know when we met about a month ago, we shared that we hopefully by now have a little bit of clarity on what our plan is too. So as the committee recommended, as we thought through, we did contact at that point all of the 5 families who had registered for half-day kindergarten, and we've had several conversations with those families. At this point, it's difficult to run a cohort of 5 students, difficult in terms of just, financially being a financially viable model, but also in terms of just what's best for kids of being in a cohort of 5. I think all of the families who we spoke with really understood that. So we're working with the families to determine what individual plan makes sense for them. I would say out of the 4 now, it seems like the majority will be, deciding to move into full-day kindergarten. There are 1 or possibly 2 who, really preferred the half-day model, and who have expressed it's well within their right to dismiss their child early if they would like. So I think that that's something that we can explore with those families if that's something they feel is best for their child. But I think overall, as we've had these conversations, I think everyone understood that this is not a viable model with 4 or 5, and sort of understood that, the full day might be the best direction to go. So we'll continue to stay in communication with those families, determine whether they're going to slide into and pay for the full day program, or we are going to work out something different and unique for the schedule with them. So I think that's sort of the best of sort of all of our possible options in front of us at this point. But I'm happy to pause any questions on that as well.
Very good.
So regarding the numbers at Wood End, given that Wood End is typically 2 classes per grade, it would seem even if someone moved right down the street from Wood End, we will assign them to a different school. Is that likely? We're not going to go to 23, right?
This is really hard.
Okay.
And I think the same thing we do in all the other grade levels. We have a couple of options, right? And I don't think we've yet determined what we're going to do. One is we can, if someone moves in, you can talk about another, school placement. Two, we can talk about adding additional classroom if needed. Three, we can add additional support to a classroom, like adding another full-time para in the class, things like that. I think we're just going to try to take it on a case-by-case basis. We know someone could move in, someone could move out. At this point, we don't have much more clarity on what we will do if. And if the committee wants more a contingency plan, we can come up with one. I think in these circumstances, we also like to look at, do they have siblings? Do they, where on the line is it? Do we know of any other potential students moving out of the district? I think all of those are sort of contextual factors that matter in how we approach it. That's why we kind of haven't come up with a hard and fast, here's what we're going to do, but it's definitely something that we've tossed around a lot of scenarios and things like that.
So the current numbers are based on where people live?
They are.
I'll say too, I mean, some of those options are more or less viable depending on when an additional student would come in, right? There are things we could do in April that we couldn't do in August, for instance. So I'm sure that'll influence the approach if we were to have another enrollment in Wood End. Tom, go ahead.
You might have said this, but I don't think I heard it, so I just want to double check. Have we sent letters out already telling people where they are?
Yeah, yes. So all of our schools were expected to give communication to families by March 15th about sort of welcome to the school, here's some things to expect. So and then we do still have things trickling in. So those families who maybe gave in their application packet today obviously haven't received communication yet. But anyone who had sent in their application materials, should have received, communication from the school already.
So in every one of these 22, because that upticked from 21 and 22 last time, so the one additional one has been notified as well?
Has been notified, correct. There is one family in there that is like right on the line with Killam too. We've contacted to say, is this something you'd consider sort of a move to Killam? But obviously right now, we've tried to keep every student in their home school by the boundaries that we have.
Okay.
Okay.
Just one more thing, I just want to, publicly acknowledge and thank you for reaching out to the families and hearing what their concerns were. It sounds like really none of them were financial, from my understanding. Only one or two of them were more like readiness and whether they could engage with a full day versus half day type thing. And we're coming to what seems to be a suitable solution for all of them. So I just, want to acknowledge that this has been a hot button issue in the past. I think so far we've navigated away from that. So thank you for the effort and the work there. It is also, this is probably going to be one of the bigger classes we've had in a while, which probably shouldn't be surprising, but it's something for us to pay attention to. The 283 is a good size number.
And I think to build on Tom's point too, in communication with the families, a lot of the families had said, sort of, we were on the fence of whether we're going to do full day or half day, and this sort of pushes us over. There were a bunch of other families who had expressed just developmentally, like they just didn't know if their child was ready for the demands of a full day. So we sort of worked with the families on that, but there wasn't a lot of families who just said that the financial piece was the major barrier. And we actually have heard from a lot of families who say that dropping the fee down to 26 has, they think, made it a much more accessible sort of tuition for their family. So I think there's also been a lot of positive feedback from the community on that as well. So thank you to the committee for also helping us push in that direction.
Anything else on this one? Okay, so with that, we'll take a motion around executive session and move to that piece of the agenda. You're looking at me, did I miss something?
Nope. I'm
Okay.
just looking at Carla saying, good luck with this motion.
I move to enter into executive session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, superintendent, and to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and this is for all bargaining units, and we will be returning to open session in approximately 1 hour.
And I do so declare that it may have a detrimental effect on our bargaining position. So I don't remember if this is debatable, but I don't believe so.
Second.
We need a roll call, actually, to go into
Okay,
executive
the
session.
second.
We have a second from Tom, and we need a roll call to go into executive session. Sarah?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
Sean? Aye. We are adjourned. We'll return in about an hour. Okay, I call our regular session back to order. So we will move now into new business.
Are we good?
Sorry? What?
Yeah, we're going to do,
It's at the end.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So our first item of new business is a sad one for our district, but I think we all understand. So Dr. Milczewski, I'll hand to you to intro this one as well.
Begrudgingly, we'll move into E1. I'd just like to start by just saying I rarely in my career or my life been around someone who I admire or respect more than Susan as a professional or as a person. Goes about her business in the absolute right way and just works incredibly hard. It is at the absolute top of her craft in the field. I just have so much respect and admiration and appreciation for you. And I think this one's really hard for our district, and I start by saying, I should say, I'm fully supportive of Susan, and I respect and admire sort of her stance in approaching something that where she feels where she is needed, and she's called into sort of action and to lead, and I fully respect that and support that, but this is a major loss for us. Couple things right there about, just quickly about Susan. I think just her impact has touched a lot of different parts of our organization. First, financially, I think a lot of the different strategic investments that we've been able to move forward with the past couple of years as a result of Susan's, I just think, thoughtfulness, creativity, strategic thinking, and they've really positioned new opportunities for our schools. Operationally, the work that Susan's led in a lot of our operational departments, most notably food services, IT, facilities, her work with the Killam Project. So all that operation work, sort of those, not only those departments, but the day-to-day of just sort of like the behind the scenes, keeping our schools running. And then the third part, sort of, I know finance ops are part of her title, but the other one is just culture. I think those who have been around Susan see that the impact that just the way that she approaches the work, the impact that has on our culture, the way that she genuinely listens to people, the way that she takes the time to sit down and validate ideas, bring ideas forward. People will constantly say to me, I approached Susan with an idea and I expected the answer to be no. And she's like, of course, we can do that. I'll find a way to figure it out. And I think that just that impact that that's had on our school culture and our district culture has been tremendous. And this has been a year and a half. So just want to, that's just in short, I think over the next couple of months and Susan's last few months, we'll certainly recognize a lot of the other ways that she has impacted our organization. But just like to express on behalf of our entire district sincere gratitude for you. I know you also want to say a couple things, then I'll move into the search process.
Thank you so much, Tom. So this is a sad moment for me as well. It has been a sincere privilege to come to work every day here in a community where everyone is supportive, our town, our school committee, and to work with Dr. Milczewski and our high-performing leadership team. It is a gift, and every day I'm grateful for being here. The reason I'm leaving really makes no rational sense to me, frankly. It's this emotional pull that I can't get beyond, and I just want you all to know just how much I value and appreciate the collaboration with our school colleagues, with our community, with all of you. And I welcome you to continue to reach out to me. I am going to do everything in my power to use whatever contacts I have to ensure that other school finance officials know how amazing this community is, and be willing to come and speak with Dr. Milczewski. In addition, I'll continue to work on Friday afternoons during the summer, and I want to be available to ensure and just make sure that the transition goes very smoothly. So thank you so much for all of your encouragement and support.
So shifting into just like what to expect in the press ahead, I think in the packet you can find the proposed process and timeline. I just want to flag a couple of things instead of reading item by item. First, you see that the approximate start date's July 10th. That's what we've sort of slated as the Friday before, which would, I think, be the 7th, would be Susan's last day. We recognize that it also may be difficult. A lot of the contracts written for current business are maybe 90 days. So there may be a little bit of a buffer period there, which we will get. We don't know if it will exist, but if we get to that, either Susan will be willing to kind of help close that gap with us and think we could work creatively. So just want to flag that because that might be on people's minds right away. Another piece, I think sort of similar composition as we had the screening committee before. I think for this role, in terms of just the outlook, this is a challenging role to fill. I think there's definitely high-quality candidates are at a premium for these roles. So I don't expect a large pool, but I think I am hopeful that we have a couple of qualified candidates in the pool. I think we're working on a favorable timeline. I think we're obviously working in a district where we're in like stable financial conditions. I think we have some things that are sort of working in our favor, but it is a really difficult position in terms of just attracting really high quality, a higher, amount of high quality candidates. As you kind of look down throughout the process, traditionally how we do all of our searches, there'll be a screening phase. After we go through the screening phase, recommendations on finalists, and those finalists will come in through a series of interviews, which will include myself, town manager, and I also want to think through too, I know this is one of those sort of joint hires with school committee, so I also want to I'm open to any other feedback tonight if school committee sees any other ways you think you would like to be involved in the process ahead. So I guess I'll just pause there and open up to questions, concerns, comments, feedback.
So I'm just looking at the makeup of the screening committee. Does the HR person there ex officio, or because I don't see that listed?
Yeah, that's the same thing that Michelle told me too. She's like, hey, I don't see my name on this list. The reason why we had her on when we did the search with Susan, I think we were going to lean on having their voice, the central office leadership team voice, so both assistant superintendents and HR director really involved in the final phase. She would sort of be able to be a part of this process, but we wouldn't have her sort of as a voting member of this group.
Just in terms of understanding the timeline, because the school committee has to vote on this one. So we're actually meeting Monday, May 8th, but it sounds like you might need more time that week to do more. So how does that work?
Yeah, my guess is as this process moves forward, that if we know when we're angling in towards a final candidate, that we may ask to have a special meeting or something to be able to get an agenda item out there on this. I also think there's an opportunity we've talked about possibly of condensing some of these timelines, especially if it's a small pool. We may be able to move a little bit quicker here too.
Okay.
More likely having to get an additional meeting. Yeah, Chuck.
I'd be interested, again, I'm not going to arm wrestle, but I'd be very interested in participating.
Yeah, any other questions or feedback on the process? Let's take a vote to approve the process, and then we'll see who's going to join Chuck. No, it's good. Well, I was going to say, we'll see who's going to join Chuck as a school committee member on this one. Any other discussion before, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done this before, but to your point, and to MGL, it is a school committee hire. So does it make sense to add one, if not both, of the school committee members to that final round as well? And I think it does personally, but I'm just putting it out there so that, any additional questions, they can hear some of the more detailed things that, maybe you and Fidel are asking, maybe what Michelle's asking, or Jen or Allison's, Jen or Sarah's asking, and since it is.
I can give you some historical,
Yeah.
not with Susan, but when we hired Gail, it was either 2 or 3 finalists came and met with the school committee, made a presentation, similar like we did with you when we hired you. Because of the fact that, I don't know why we didn't do it with Susan.
Timing, probably.
What's that?
Timing, probably.
Timing, and then I think the other thing too is that we're worried that just because candidates are just really high quality candidates are at such a premium now, if we're getting any sitting current business administrators, we worry that actually having 3 to be able to come out to maybe be finalists, public finalists, there may be some that may not want to sort of take that risk without, having any guarantee that they're going to be move forward with selection too.
Yeah,
So-
and I wasn't saying we should do that necessarily. I'm just giving the historical history of it.
I think that's something we talked about, and I think at this point, I'm just I think our strategy has been to try to cast as wide of a net as possible, and maybe not put in any barriers that may sort of kind of have some candidates, pause. But I would think, I like the idea of possibly getting committee members like as part of those final interviews. That way everyone has a chance to engage, interact, share feedback during that final phase.
This is not an official subcommittee or official advisory committee,
Nope.
so we wouldn't have to be bound by any of those rules.
No, it's essentially an advisory committee to the
Administrative advisory
superintendent,
board,
yeah. Yep. So Tom, is the proposal that the school committee members who participate on the screening committee would also have the opportunity to participate in the finalist vetting? Or is your suggestion that there be,
Actually,
committee members
that's-
in each of those roles? Because one way to do it might be to have one committee member on the screening committee and one in the finalist process, for instance.
Or, like you were just saying, 2 and 2, and 2 separate ones. Once you've done the prelim, then the 2 that were involved in the prelim have a chance to, they've whittled it down. And then the 2 that are involved in the final, they're not discussing, they're not deliberating amongst each other or anything else like that. You're just having, but that way, if 4 of us are interested, 4 of us would have the ability to do it without violating anything. And 4 of us would then know the 2 for the finalists in a very detailed way, probably.
Is there a way to, sorry, Sean,
Go
is
ahead.
there a way to have the entire committee meet with the finalists in an executive session?
No,
An executive session, we could meet individually, but we can't meet in executive session with a quorum.
finalists have to be in public if they're going to be in the meeting of the whole body.
I think it's important that every committee member has an opportunity to see whatever comes out of the screening committee before the superintendent decides to hire somebody.
So-
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I understand that sentiment. It's a departure. We hired, Dr. Hardy. I don't think we had this degree of involvement. And that's another one of this type of role where it's a school committee sign off on the hire, right? So,
No, it's
not
different.
the same.
It is different in the MGL. We are technically the hiring body. And in the assistant
This
superintendent.
and
You're
Labor
right.
Council is
Yep.
under our.
yeah, you're right.
purview.
So let's do this. There's also, these are a reasonably big commitment in a few weeks, and in the heat, and also right around the time that we're all doing a full day in the buildings. What's everybody's availability?
And we have Killam Building Committee, we're getting in our
We're getting busy.
request for proposals
Yeah.
all around this time, too. So, and that's going to be a huge commitment.
And we have the legal counsel coming in right around this time, too. So it's a busy time.
Got a lot
but-
going on.
Yep.
Yeah, personally, just knowing what I've got some work travel and stuff, I don't know that I would raise my hand to commit to this right now. I'd love to be involved, but I'm not sure I can make the commitment on this particular timeline.
I'm similar in that after April break, those next 2 weeks are like professionally, I'm gonna be slammed.
Yeah.
So with the full day at school that week, it makes it really hard to take on anything else. As much as I
And
know how important this
the other thing I
is.
would say is, to your point, Tom, we're about to accept, well, not accept, we're about to consider the recommendation of 2 school committee members to hire counsel as well, right? So, while I think it'd be nice if we could facilitate an opportunity for any committee members who might want to talk to the finalists,
Yep.
that'd be great. I think we should probably stick to sort of a typical couple of us being involved, rather than trying to overcomplicate it or over-involve it. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but Because anyway, it sounds like there might not be more than a couple of us who are super eager to sign up for the commitment in this particular timeframe anyway.
Could have held out.
I guess I'll say this as well. I think that week of May 1st, I will be out of town Tuesday through Friday, so I can't commit to that. I do want to get as much information as possible in the finalist round. So I don't know if that means you want to split it like you were suggesting, since it sounds like a lot of other people can't do it anyway, unless, Sarah, you haven't said anything. But,
No, I can't, I have too many other commitments.
if we're okay splitting it, and Chuck can do, and he can obviously do a second round too, but unless it's, the Monday or early on the Tuesday, then I can't commit to May 1st as a week overall. But I definitely want to commit to the finalist vetting process.
So how about, why don't I suggest this? So I'm just looking at the numbers here. Oh, I'm sorry, superintendent's just a facilitator. I was going to say we get to an odd number if we only have one school committee member, but I miscounted. So Chuck, what if you were to be involved in the screening committee? And sorry, Carla, I don't know if.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if we got your perspective on availability and sort of interest in at this
Killam.
point.
The Killam
Because of Killam, right, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. So I'm hearing, Chuck and Tom kind of have interest and at least generally availability, what if we considered having Chuck participate in the screening process and Tom participate in kind of the finalist vetting process somewhat formally? Are folks comfortable with that approach? I'm looking at you in particular.
And I can also be in touch too as we get close to the finalist phase, if there's other ways for committee members to possibly have the chance to interact quickly with anyone who we're leaning towards.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to cut Chuck off at the finalist stage, right? Like, just because
No.
Tom is tied up the week of May
Well,
1st, couldn't we still have two in that?
The only hesitation I have, and I do hear the point that we have a statutory role in this one, so it's probably okay. But the only hesitation I have is there a perception that gives, Chuck a bigger voice in the ultimate hire than anybody else who was on the screening committee? Is that a problem? I don't, maybe it's not, I don't know. But that would be my only hesitation with having somebody participate in the screening committee with a vote and participate in the finalist process with a vote, so to
I feel
speak.
like once you get to finalists, it's like a new slate, right? Like, you sort of got to approach it like, now we're just, I don't know.
I thought this was going to be a 3-minute conversation.
Maybe you don't care, but I just feel like just because Tom is tied up for one stage doesn't mean.
You could put us both, to Aaron's point, you could put us both, and if it so happens that the first round is scheduled on Monday and Tuesday morning, I can attend.
Or
And if you can't attend, you can't
make the
attend.
meeting.
Yeah.
It's like
But you could still be on, you could still be
All
the
right.
one of two designated school committee members on. the-
So we can go back to what's captured here, and you two are the designated school committee members. You'll participate in the screening committee, and then, pending availability, you'll participate in the screening committee pending availability, and then have the opportunity to participate in the finalist process as well. Is that comfortable? Great, we're good with that? Okay. Can we take a vote on this one then?
Move to approve the Director of Finance search process.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 6-0. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, our next order of business is the last day of school. I don't think we need a long preamble here. We used one snow day, so we're looking at June 16th as the approved last day of school. So can we take a motion, and then we'll see if there's any debate on that?
Move to approve June 16th as the last day of school for our school year 22-23.
Is there a second?
Second.
Aaron.
I'm going to give that one to Aaron. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? And it carries 6-0. Okay, next order of business, I detailed this in the packet, and there's also the letter that I received and some supporting documentation in the packet, but let me speak to this one a little bit. So at our last school committee meeting, I think there was a letter that had been sent to me from the Director of Veteran Services in Wilmington on behalf of a Wilmington resident and his family who went to Reading Memorial High School. I don't know if it was called Memorial at the time, but went to high school in Reading in the late 40s and early 50s and left school to enlist and join the Air Force and served overseas during Korea in the Air Force. MGL 71, Chapter 71, Section 4 allows school committees to grant diplomas to folks who left high school under those very circumstances. Pending that they were honorably discharged and that they, sort of were designated as having served in a specified list of conflicts, the Korean War being one of those. So the sort of opportunity for us tonight is to vote to sort of, essentially direct the administration to grant a diploma to Mr. Richard Carlson. His family intends to surprise him, should we grant the diploma, to surprise him with it at a family event, which is why they're not joining us this evening. So we won't get to share in the celebration per se, if we do vote to do this tonight. The other bit of feedback that I wanted to share, the language in MGL 71, Section 4, essentially says the Department of Education, the Department of Veteran Services or Veterans Affairs will promulgate guidelines for how school committees should consider this. And the guidelines they promulgated literally just say, this is the law that was passed, and this language shall constitute guidance from the Department of Education and Department of Vet. So they totally punted on providing any guidance. What our council suggested was, and one of Colby's colleagues in particular sort of researched this, what our council suggested was, if we have any records available about the specifics of the circumstances under which he left Reading High, then that's a factor. We don't have any records, as not surprising. But whatever we can do to confirm that those were the circumstances, and then certainly confirming the dates of service and so forth. So included in the packet are his DD 214, which is a discharge document. So you can see from the DD 214, it was an honorable discharge. There's a designation there for Korean service. It's got the dates as well. I did have a back and forth with the folks in Wilmington who confirmed that that was the reason that he left school, was to enlist. I asked one question. There's something on one of the documents that details he had a job, I think as a carpenter, if I remember correctly. That was actually a job that he held while enrolled as a student, and it was SOP at the time. It was SOP at the time to capture the last employment that somebody had, even if they were a student full time. So. That was in addition to being a full-time student. It wasn't that he, left high school in 1950 to go be a carpenter and then join the military. So that's sort of what I know. I think I may have a few other pieces of information if I missed anything and somebody asked the question, but I think the objective tonight would be if there are any, sort of questions we need to have answered before we can move forward from the committee, I want to capture those and we'll follow up on those. Failing that, we would take a vote tonight to approve granting Mr. Carlson a diploma. Go ahead, Tom.
Is there any interest in the family in having him walk on June
That's
2nd?
what was going to be my question.
I don't know yet, but we can certainly
I
follow
think
up
that
on that.
would be phenomenal.
opportunity. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
He is,
He's 90
he is
at this point.
91 years old, I think.
Yeah.
So I
may be hard,
I don't know what his, physical condition is, but we can certainly offer the
I
opportunity.
think that, yeah,
Yeah.
if he was willing, it would be
What I
a
don't.
monumental moment.
What I don't know, I don't recall if they shared with me the specific timing. I don't know if the family event they're planning to use to present it is before or after graduation, so that might be a factor, but we can certainly follow up on that.
I think even if it is or it isn't, we should put that offer out there.
For sure,
you know,
yeah.
To walk.
Yeah.
Does anybody know if Bill Brown knows this person?
No, I don't, I did not reach out to Bill Brown and think about it.
They're right about the same age. And he knows pretty much everybody that's living from the military timeframe, so.
So I'm supposed to keep this under wraps as much as we can in a public meeting for now, so. But.
I doubt he's watching.
Okay, sorry.
So, any other questions on this one or showstoppers before we go to a vote? Okay, I thought this one was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Love him to walk, I think that would be fun.
That'd be awesome. Or even if we can't, even if he isn't able to walk, but if we could acknowledge it somehow, right? I think that'd be great, so.
At the minimum, we can do that.
We can certainly work with the high school, the team at the high school on that, one way or the other, so. All right, why don't we take a motion?
I move to direct the district to grant a high school diploma to Mr. Richard Carlson with our congratulations and appreciation for his service.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Carries to 6-0. That's a fun one. All right. So the next three orders of business or items are around student activity accounts. I'm pleased that Dr. Quorum is here because this has been his bugaboo for many years. So
You're not allowed to ask questions.
So the general gist here is that Ms. Baton has been working with our auditor and sort of studying the student activity accounts. I'll hand to you in just a second. But the three things we'll try to do this evening are to sort of approve the active, or the student activity accounts which will remain active, to approve their status, to vote to close those that have been deemed as inactive, and then we'll vote to move funds from any that we have voted to close this evening. So that's sort of the general overview, and with that, I will hand to Ms. Baton.
Thank you for that summary. That's the gist of this report. The report contains the results of a recent audit that was conducted by Melanson. It began last spring, 2021. So the auditor came in and looked at the prior full fiscal year, so FY '21, and that's what this report evaluates. They completed the audit in the fall of 2023, so 2022, sorry. And within the auditor's findings, the auditor made note of a number of actions that we've already taken to address some of the shortcomings. So before you is the result of the audit, again, a list of active accounts that we wanted you to approve, although it is not required for school committee to vote on active student activity accounts every year. It is considered best practice, and it was a recommendation by the auditor. We would also like you to close inactive accounts that have been identified by the principal of Coolidge, Parker, and Reading Memorial High School. Whatever funds remain in those inactive closed accounts will be shifted to two different places. One is to cover any residual shortfall within an inactive account, and the balance will be deposited into a student's assistance account, which will be used in two ways. One is to provide financial support for students' participation in any of these clubs or field trips. And these are students who may qualify for free and reduced lunch. They may be students who don't qualify, but whose families are having difficulty at the moment to afford participation. And lastly, the funds will be, these funds will be deposited into a student assistance that could be used to reduce the cost of a field trip or of an activity for all students. So I am happy to answer any questions. It's a fairly extensive report. A great deal of effort was put into this report, and I'd like to thank especially Kate Finnegan, who is our business and financial analyst, who focused on the Reading Memorial High School accounts. She worked closely with Katie Buckley, with Principal Kevin Tracy. Diane Finnegan worked closely with our Parker principal, and Mariana Zani, our admin assistant at Coolidge, worked closely with the principal of our Coolidge Middle School. So I'd like to thank their help. Sharon Engstrom from the town, and Kate and I worked on reconciling accounts with the town's cash status. So, you know, we've done a great deal in cleaning up and setting in place accounts that we'll continue to monitor, and that will help students going forward.
I have a couple of questions. Sorry, go ahead. You can start, Tom. Go ahead.
No, I mean, go ahead. There seems to be a lot in this recommendation list that we haven't done yet, or normally scheduled. So it seems like we, as a collective, should really look through this and make sure that going into next year, we have a good understanding of the timings. For example, we have to approve all the open ones on the second meeting in September.
Yep.
As a recommendation. Every time a new one is opened, we need to approve it within a reasonable period of time.
Correct.
So that's kind of a back and forth with most likely the high school more than anything, but if there are others created in other places, we need to be aware of those as well. There's a lot of expectations here from a school committee perspective, so, and policy updates. There's a lot of policy updates that are on this too, that we currently have on our agenda, so we'll have to add that to our agenda as well. So there's a lot here to take in as actions. So first of all, thanks to the auditor and you for working through that, and Sharon for working through that, and for, outlining what our critical steps are going to be. There's a lot here, so we'll have to make sure we understand it all. So not a question, but more a comment.
Yeah, I had the same observation. I mean, even the one around annually approving the ceiling,
Yes.
we've never approved the ceiling since I've been on the committee, so that must just be a legacy number of 20, was it 25 and 40, so, and I would ask the question, depending on how long ago those numbers were set, maybe the reason that we're bumping up against 40,000 with high schools, it's too low, given sort of what things cost today versus what they cost, whenever it was that the school committee actually last voted that number. So I agree with Tom. I think there probably are more to-dos here and more things we need to think about. How do we build into our systems from a school committee perspective? The one other, one other question, I just want to make sure I understand this clearly. You were saying that the unused funds and the accounts, the inactive accounts that we shut down tonight, a number of the inactive accounts have negative balances. So those unused funds where they have positive balances will first go to settle those
That's
negative
correct.
balances? Okay. Okay, that was, I think, my only question with respect to what we are looking to do this evening. I don't know, do others have questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Carl.
So I'm looking on page 38 of the packet, and it's the grid, and it talks about the active student activity accounts. And it talks about the different class funds, and some of them are inactive and some of them are active.
Yes.
So those inactive ones, those have money in them?
Two of them have money in them. It's FY '21, the class of '21 and the class of '22.
Okay.
And those accounts, the amount in those accounts total, I think about $25,000, $27,000. The amount is located on page 15. The class of '21 has $13,116, and the class of '22 has $15,066.
Sure.
So would one of those classes, I mean, those are fairly recent, obviously, would they have maybe not bought like a class gift, and that money we would hate to take that money and put it somewhere else and then they go looking for it to.
Yes, that's correct. We have been reaching out to the class officers. We've reached out to the teachers to see if they could get in touch with the class officers so that we can do something with these funds. School committee policy calls for the funds to be moved into a class officer's name within 180 days. So if there are any families watching this evening and they have students from these graduating classes, we'd love to hear from them. Going forward, we actually had a meeting with the director downstairs at the bank, and Judy, I'm sorry, I can't remember Judy's last name, but she's going to come and meet with the students who are the class officers of 23. And she's going to arrange with them to set up an account before they graduate and speak with them about how to go about accessing these funds, how to invest the funds so that it can generate interest. So she's turning it into a learning opportunity. but at this time, those funds are, for the 2 older classes are sitting there, and they
So
have to be closed.
Are you saying we're out of line with our policy right now?
Yes, these accounts should have been closed and transferred, but the students graduated, they went on, we haven't been able to reach them. So we're doing what we can for this current year's class to make sure that they take their funds.
Seems like that's a pretty quick window, though, Ed. Well, I guess that's a policy discussion.
180 days? That's 6 months.
Yeah, I think that Susan's point, obviously, the best practice is to do it on their way out the door rather than trying to chase them down post-graduation, right? So,
And with the bank right here in the building, and, the director being willing to meet with the students, I think is a great solution. May I also just mention 2 other things, and certainly school committee, you all can take your time and look through this. There are a couple other documents that are going to be coming your way. One is that we're completing the procedures and guidelines. We will be sharing it with the secretaries and with Katie Buckley. She's meeting again in June, at the end of June, with some advisors to take a look at our guidelines, to create an executive summary, to help provide tips and tricks for advisors to make it much more manageable for them. So I'm happy to share those documents with you as well. And then lastly, we'll be conducting annual internal audits. So as part of the guidelines, I've included the questionnaire process for admin assistants, showing them what it is that we're going to be looking for, what the expectations are for their work with these funds. So things will be in order going forward.
go ahead, Tom.
Can we, I don't know what the motion is for tonight necessarily, but I think part of it is to approve the closure of the inactive ones and allow for transfer of money and stuff like that. But, so is it possible, I know it's outside of our policy range, but given the COVID years of 21 and 22, is it possible we can pull those 2 out of this approval for now and bring it back at another time? And, I have to think between Carla, me, and Chuck, we know enough kids in those classes that we could at least try and network a little bit more to find out who should be pulling that money out and who should be taking that responsibility. That's, $28,000 that theoretically should be paying for the 25th anniversary, 25th reunion or something else along those lines, or a class gift, like Chuck says. The rest, and I think everything else that's negative can be paid for, all the things that are already also inactive,
Yes.
relatively safely, while pulling out the 21 and 22 from the closure list.
Can we plan to bring those back in, say, a month if we still haven't successfully tracked any of these students down? I mean, if things are in process to get a bank account opened or whatever, that's fine, but I just don't want to,
Yeah.
as we're identifying that we are relatively far out of policy here, I'd rather put a time box on it.
Could we say June? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Okay. All right, so so when we take the motion, we'll exclude the class of 21 and class of 22 funds at the high school, and we'll plan to bring those back by June if we still haven't been able to identify students to start that transfer process.
Is that to the 3rd motion, John?
That will apply
one
for
to-
the second motion, and
close.
and the third motion just refers to whichever ones we close, so it won't apply to those for tonight. So it's just the second motion that would be, that you would amend the language for. Okay, any further discussion on this one? Dr. Quorum. We're probably going to have to come up here. I don't think
This one doesn't work?
they can hear you at home anymore. It's funky. We should probably just move the podium over here, actually.
Thank you. I guess I'm not allowed to ask any question, but I'll make some comments. So thank you, Susan, for doing this. It's great to see this dug into all the things. I had similar thoughts as you, Sean, about Mr. Brandt, about the amounts in those accounts being, sort of not adjusted for inflation over the intervening years. I'll speak perhaps for the Drama Club, where I know that they often collect money over a number of years in order to buy some large, expensive audiovisual equipment or something, so that, we're already looking at close to half of the threshold in the Drama Club alone. And also with those, graduating classes in '21, which my daughter was, that was COVID years, and, a number of the senior activities that I remember from my older daughter would not have happened, and a lot of that fundraising was done pre-pandemic, and that fund, those funds were collected in the thought that they would be doing all these senior wake activities that they were then unable to do. So it is nice to set that aside, those funds aside, to say, okay, should we do something, should those classes be able to do something with those funds now that the pandemic has eased, and maybe get back in touch with them.
So can we count on your daughter to help us with 21 as well?
I just texted her to ask her who the class president was for her class, but
We can
yes.
send everybody a check.
Yeah.
We do have the names of the officers, so if it's helpful, we can actually distribute the names to all of you.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything further before we move to the motions here? Okay, why don't we start with the first one around approving the active, or the accounts that will remain active?
I move to approve active 2022-2023 student activity accounts.
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor? All opposed, 6-0. And then the second motion around the inactive ones, or closing the inactive ones?
I move to close inactive 2022-2023 student activity accounts with the exception of the class of 2021 and class of 2022 funds.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor? All opposed, 6-0. And then finally,
I move to transfer funds from inactive 2022-2023 student activity accounts to cover any active SSA shortfall and deposit balance of funds into the student assistance account.
is there a second?
Except for,
Yeah.
because we,
It was on closed inactive ones.
she didn't say that. She
Oh,
said,
I'm sorry. So we want to amend the motion. We'll amend the motion to refer only to the ones we've just closed.
Yep.
Yep.
Right, I thought it was an assumption.
Yeah, we didn't plan to pull two out at the time, so we're just covering our bases here.
Yep.
Okay, so, Dr. Quorum, before,
Amendment to, is that for the respective schools?
Yes.
oh, student assistance fund per school? Yes, yeah, and to cover the balance, yeah, yep.
Tom seconded.
Seconded, was it seconded by Tom? or-
We just
okay.
did. The
Okay.
amended version, yeah.
The amended version, okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? And all opposed, 6-0. Okay. So we'll have some offline follow-up, trying to track down those 21 and 22 kids, and then we'll bring some of this back potentially in as early as June. And then we've certainly got some to-dos to sort of clean up some of the broader processes that we'll start exploring as well. All right, our last order of business tonight, let me just provide a little bit of context around what a portion of our executive session was around, and then we're going to have potentially some public discussion and take a vote as well. Dr. Milichewski's contract with us has a the sort of the full term or the normal term of his contract runs through June 30th of 2024, so just over a year from now. The contract has a clause which says essentially that by June 30th of this year, we have to notify Dr. Milichewski whether or not we intend to extend his to enter into contract negotiations and extend his contract. If we don't give him an affirmative answer one way or the other, then his contract tolls for one more year and then would then go through 2025. So we went into executive session essentially to discuss sort of what our strategy is for approaching Dr. Milichewski for contract extension discussions. And so the vote that we are about to take is to sort of publicly express what the intent of the committee is as to whether or not to enter into extension discussions, which would satisfy the obligations of the contract and allow us to move forward with those discussions. I don't know if any of that made sense. It probably made sense to the committee because we just had the longer discussion in there. Hopefully it made sense to folks at home. Dr. Coram, did that somewhat resonate? Okay, good. So with that, is there any further sort of public discussion folks would like to have before, actually, why don't we take the motion first, yeah.
I move to express the committee's intent to enter into a successor contract negotiation with the superintendent.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. All right, any further discussion at this point? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And it carries 6-0. So more to come on that. We will enter into successor negotiations and more to come. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. Anything else that wouldn't get us into trouble with open meeting law before I take a final motion? No?
Is that a dig at me?
That's not a dig. That's not a dig at anybody in particular.
to vote on, Sean.
2 for 2, Chuck.
Honestly, that was not even a seed in my mind when I made that comment, but, anyway. All right. Is there a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Seconded by Chuck. All in favor? All opposed? It carries to 6-0. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.